Hello, everyone. So, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity that you've given me to share my research with you today. My name is Achini Rodrigo, and I'm originally from Sri Lanka, and I'm a tertiary educator in New Zealand. I work with international students preparing to transition into New Zealand undergraduate programs. So I teach in a pathway program. So throughout my teaching journey, I've worked with learners. I've worked alongside, I would like to say, learners and educators from diverse cultural, linguistic, and also educational backgrounds. So these experiences have shaped my interest in understanding how people engage with learning approaches that may differ from those that they have previously experienced. And I would like to begin with the question today. When we introduce collaborative and technology supported approaches to learning, do we fully consider the different educational journeys that the learners bring with them? So, in discussions about online learning, attention is mostly placed on technological access, digital skills, and also the availability of online platforms. However, learning is not always shaped by technology alone. Learners also bring their previous educational experiences, cultural expectations, professional attitudes, and also beliefs about what effective learning looks like. If I give an example, some educators may have developed professionally in environments where knowledge was traditionally transmitted from teacher to student, while contemporary education increasingly emphasizes collaboration, peer-led teaching, learn autonomy, and also shared knowledge construction. So my research titled Reimagining Inclusion, Generation X Teachers in Collaborative Online Teacher Education Contexts explores the experiences of Generation X Asian international teachers studying in a New Zealand postgraduate classroom. So the study examines how these experienced educators navigate collaborative online learning environments and how their educational histories influence their engagement with these approaches. Before discussing the research itself, I would like to clarify how Generation X is understood within this study. For the purpose of this study, Gen X referred to individuals born between 1965 and 1980. However, for the purpose of this study, the research does not approach Gen X as a fixed identity or assume that people within this group have identical characteristics or learning preferences or technological abilities. Instead, Gen X is used as an age cohort or age cohort reference point to explore a particular educational and historical context. And many individuals within this cohort experienced significant educational and technological transitions. They often began their education in environments where learning was predominantly teacher-led or teacher-directed, structured, and also based on knowledge transmission. Later, many of these individuals entered professional contexts where expectations shifted towards learner-centered approaches, digital technologies, and also collaborative approaches or collaborative practices. Therefore, the focus of the study is not whether Gen X or Generation X teachers are naturally more or less capable of engaging with online learning. Rather, the focus is how do previous educational experiences shape the way experienced educators interpret and participate in learning environments or in online learning environments. So The research mainly explores how Gen X Asian international teachers engage with cooperative online learning within a New Zealand postgraduate classroom. And it considers how the engagement is influenced by several interconnected factors, including previous educational experiences, cultural expectations about teaching and learning, professional identity, experiences with technology, and also the design of online learning environments. And the topic is important mainly because postgraduate teacher education programs are increasingly becoming internationally diverse, and experienced educators from different educational systems are entering these programs where expectations around learning may differ significantly from those that they previously encountered. So at the same time, cooperative learning has become a dominant approach in many educational contexts, particularly following the expansion of online and blended learning. However, sometimes there's sometimes an assumption that because individuals have access to technology, they will automatically feel confident and comfortable participating in technology supported collaborative environments. This research explores, or this research challenges that assumption by exploring the complexity behind engagement. And it talks about what happens when experienced educators who have valuable professional knowledge enter learning environments designed around different pedagogical expectations. So although online learning and also cooperative learning, collaborative learning continue to expand, adult learners are often discussed as one broad category. However, adult learners are not a homogeneous group. They differ in terms of age, cultural background, educational history, professional experience, and previous encounters with technology. In this case, Generation X international teachers represent an interesting group because they often occupy a transitional position. Many of these teachers, many of these experienced or we can say many experienced teacher-centered education approaches during their own schooling and professional development. So many of these teachers have experienced teacher-centered education approaches during their own schooling or professional engagement. However, they are now required to engage with approaches that emphasize learner autonomy, peer collaboration, online interaction, and also digital knowledge construction. While this research has explored online learning and digital engagement, less attention has been given to how experienced international teachers interpret these changes. In particular, limited research has examined how Generation X teachers, Generation X international, Generation X Asian teachers negotiate the movement between different educational cultures and pedagogical expectations. So this study addresses this gap by exploring their lived experiences within a postgraduate online teacher education environment. The central research question guiding this study was how do Generation X Asian teachers perceive and engage with collaborative learning in an online learning environment? To explore this broader question, the study examined three areas. First, how collaborative learning approaches support or challenge participants' learning experiences. This explored whether collaborative activities created opportunities for meaningful interaction and also knowledge sharing, or whether they created challenges for learners accustomed to different approaches. Second, what factors influence engagement? This included exploring the role of technology, cultural expectations, previous educational experiences, professional identity, and also learning design. Third, what implications these experiences have for designing inclusive online teacher education programs. The purpose was not to identify whether one approach was better than the other, but to understand how different learning activities interact with contemporary online environments. So the study was guided by two theoretical perspectives. First, Mannheim's theory of generations. Second, Vygotsky's social constructivist theory. Mannheim's theory of generations is important because it moves beyond the idea that generations are simply determined by birth year. And Mannheim argues that people who experience similar historical and social conditions may develop shared ways of understanding the world. Therefore, Gen X in this study is not viewed as a fixed group with predictable characteristics. Instead, it represents individuals who may share certain educational and technological transitions. Vygotsky emphasizes the learning occurs through interaction with others. Knowledge is developed through dialogue, collaboration, scaffolding, and participation in social contexts. So this theory is particularly relevant because online collaborative learning environments depend heavily on interaction and shared meaning making. And so together, these theories help explain how participants' previous educational experiences interacted with the experiences of cooperative online learning. So to explore these experiences, this study adopted a qualitative research approach. A qualitative approach was selected because the purpose was not to measure the engagement numerically, but to understand the participants' lived experiences, interpretations, and meanings. The participants were 20 Asian Generation X teachers studying in an online postgraduate teacher education setting in New Zealand. And the data were collected through semi-structured interviews, and this allowed consistency across the interviews while also providing flexibility for the participants to describe, express even their opinions, describe their personal experiences, challenges, and also the moments of adaptation. And the interview data were analyzed using thematic analysis. Through this process, patterns and shared meanings were identified across their experiences. This approach allowed the research to capture the complexity of the online learning experiences of these experienced educators, rather than reducing engagement to simple measures such as technology use or participation frequency. So the analysis identified three key themes. Theme one was the preference for structure. The participants expressed a strong preference for clarity, organization, and explicit expectations. They reflected their previous experiences in structured education environments where teachers often played the role of knowledge providers. However, this preference did not indicate resistance to new approaches. Rather, these participants suggested that clear frameworks help them feel confident enough to participate. However, they prefer to have either someone or something that is more knowledgeable than them. And theme 2 was adaptability through collaboration. Even though participants valued structure, they demonstrated adaptability, significant level of adaptability. Through peer discussions, collaborative activities, and also shared knowledge construction, they developed confidence in these activities. And collaboration always became a process through which participants negotiated new learning expectations. And theme 3, engagement is context dependent. This is the final theme. This highlighted that engagement was not determined by generation alone. Instead, engagement depended on multiple interacting factors, such as the quality of learning design, support, technological support, cultural expectations, previous experiences, and opportunities for a meaningful interaction. The findings challenge the assumption that Gen X teachers are resistant to online or collaborative learning. Instead, they demonstrate that experienced educators can adapt successfully when given that learning environments recognize the existing knowledge and also provide appropriate, adequate support. To conclude, the study highlights that inclusion in online education requires more than providing access to technology. And effective online learning depends on thoughtful pedagogical design, supportive facilitation, and also meaningful opportunities for interaction. And the experience of Generation X Asian teachers demonstrate that learners' engagement cannot be explained simply through age categories. Instead, engagement emerges through the relationship between learners' histories, identities, expectations, and also the learning environment. That plays a huge role. And the research suggests that generational diversity should be viewed as a pedagogical resource rather than a limitation. And experienced teachers bring valuable professional knowledge, cultural perspectives, and educational experiences that can enrich collaborative learning environments. And the key message from this research is that inclusive online education does not require learners to leave their previous experience behind. Instead, it requires learning environments that recognize, connect with, and build upon those experiences. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I would like to welcome your questions.
I've just got one comment. You made me feel like I'm really seen and like you're just speaking to me. So thanks.
Oh, thank you for that comment. That was
actually a fellow Gen X person.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, many of my participants also mentioned that they felt like now they have a voice. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Achin, for your great presentation and looking at, different group of, teachers to understand online learning. That's very, very interesting. Is there any other question you would like to ask Achin? Any question? Sarah?
Well, what are your future ambitions? So where do you want to go with this, down the track?
My future ambitions. The reason why I decided to do this research actually was mainly because I've studied alongside two other generations. Not to stereotype anyone, but considering the modern definitions of generations, I do represent Generation Y, and I have studied alongside Generation X and Z. And I have experienced, it's a beautiful experience, I must say. Different generations always bring different experiences, different perspectives, mainly. And if we can use it as an opportunity or a platform to blend it in a nicer way, that looking at something from different angles, different views, rather than seeing it as a threat or seeing it as a challenge, but rather seeing it as an opportunity. So that was one of the reasons, because I felt that experience quite enriched my my learning. So that's one of the reasons why I did conduct this research. So talking about my future ambitions, I would like to research more. I actually have conducted another research on all the three generations in one classroom. I would like to learn more about, not to categorize people, but to learn more about how different experiences can blend in and create something far more beautiful in a classroom. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is very interesting that you mentioned that, engagement is not influenced by, a single kind of factor. There are multiple. I have been studying a similar one, for example, digital, you mentioned digital technology, for example, a skill, attitude, literacy, maybe self-efficacy. There are many factors that play around, for engagement to happen. But you mentioned also you are trying, different generation. Have you observed any common trends that are happening across this generation that could influence engagement? Have you seen any preliminary common tips?
One thing that I have noticed or experienced, that Generation X individuals are open to learn, and Generation Z are more tech savvy, and Generation Y work as a mediator between these two generations, especially in a classroom. That is something that I have experienced. So, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
If
you.
there is no any other question, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, and we will move to the next presentation in 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey Sayum, how are you? I'm just
Good.
testing.
How are you? Good.
Good.
Welcome.
I'm just testing my slide and see if it can be